Welcome to the Yerba Power Podcast, where we share the power of Yerba Mate with the world. Introducing your host, Devin.
Welcome to another episode of the Yerba Power Podcast. I'm Devin. If you recognize that voice in the intro, that is a hint of what this episode is about. That intro is recorded by none other than Darren from Yerba Mate Lab. I asked him a while back if he'd be willing to do my intro because his voice is unique and soothing. He is someone you've probably seen on YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, and is well known for the tutorials that they do. Darren and his team do great things of marketing for the Yerba Mate community, and all the reviews and notes and learning education that he does in his videos and the quality that he does it. Hats off to him. And now I have the honor of reviewing his new yerba. Yerba Mate Lab started back in 2017 as a blog. And I remember him telling me that, based off of conversations we had, that he was listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast just like I did and a lot of other people. Very popular podcast. And Tim Ferriss lived in Argentina for a while and started drinking yerba mate. And he did an episode where he recommended different things about yerba mate and Cruz de Malta and all those kind of things. And that piqued Darren's interest, and that's where he first learned about it and got hooked ever since. And started writing a blog about the different brands and reviews, basically doing what I do on the podcast, but in a written format. And he has a very unique taste and take on the different yerbas with all the flavor notes and things that I really admire. So going along with the unique taste and notes that he has about his different yerbas that he's tried, he also has just released a very unique yerba that is called La Palma, which is Spanish for the palm, which is a reference to the hand icon that they use for their, their branding. And if you notice on the hand, it's got a circle. That's where the dust from the mate comes from. So it's a pretty cool little symbol there. If you ever wondered why that's about that. So when you're preparing the yerba mate and you're shaking the gourd, and then you take your hand off and you have that circle of dust on your hand from where the gourd was when you shake it up. That's that circle where they wrote Yerba Mate Lab in the middle. That's what that reference is for. That's if you've ever wondered why the little circle is there with the hand. Next time you're shaking up your gourd with your hand and look down and see if you got that circle of dust there. It's kind of like the little honor badge of a true matero. It's, someone that's preparing the gourd themselves. So starting as a blog back in 2017 and now big on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Darren and his team first released their own yerba about a month or so ago at the time of this recording, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll start with going into the packaging, the origin of it, the uniqueness, and my review on it. And what I'm going to call this yerba is the intro to Chimarrão. And I'll explain that in a little bit. But first, let me do the packaging, and then we'll go into what I mean by calling it the intro to Chimarrão, and even what that is. So I want to give huge kudos to Yerba Mate Lab and their team for the design on this packaging. It's beautiful. The green really catches your eye. It's got this like foil, kind of gold sparkle, I guess you could say, to it, and having the actual Yerba Mate leaves designed on there. It's just a really nice packaging. The size too is unique. It is a 500 grams, which is a little less than a pound, half of a kilo. That's usually what the typical weights measurements of yerba mate is in kilograms or half kilograms, just because it's coming from outside the U.S. For us Americans, that we measure everything in pounds, kilograms in the rest of the world. And there's white lettering that's highlighted in the gold. Looks really good. And that goes well with the branding of the Yerba Mate Lab. And on the back, it has the traditional method of how to brew it, as well as strainer, French press, teapot. Organic, USDA organic is something to note that has a little symbol on here. And just a little bit of the origin story and about the yerba. So this is where I'll get into the origin and the uniqueness of this yerba and why I said intro to Chimarrão. So first, this yerba is grown in Paraná, Brazil. So in the southern region of Brazil, and the Paraná rainforest is kind of the mecca of yerba mate. And so being that it's grown in Brazil, that is one uniqueness about the yerba mate that comes from the different regions. A lot of the Uruguayan cuts or brands are actually grown in Brazil and produced in Brazil. And the Brazilian form, I would say, the more style Brazilian and Uruguayan specifically is without the sticks and stems, and also a finer kind of powder, finer cut as compared to Argentine or Paraguayan. And so the Brazilian, even more so, is Chimarrão, which is, it's the same yerba mate. It's just usually greener, so unaged, meaning it's basically freshly grown, dried, and then drank, instead of being dried and aged for 12 to 24 months, as some of the Argentine yerbas are. And so this one is specifically unsmoked and non-aged of De La Palma. It is the Uruguayan cut type PU1, which I had to do a little bit more research on this before recording, but that is a specific measurement that Brazil uses to classify their different yerbas. So the PU stands for Padrón Uruguayo, number 1. So that means it is the Uruguayan standard for export. In other words, that is the type that they produce in Brazil for Uruguayan markets. And the 1 is just a different, apparently there's different numbers for that. So PN1, PN2 is like the national product or the national standard. So that would be in Brazil. And then PU would be Uruguay. And then there's even PC I've seen. So that's for the Chile. Anyways, so the PU1 is the Uruguayan type. And according to what I found on the internet is that the 1 standard, that kind, is 90% the like dust pulverized dry leaves and not more than 10% of finely ground dried stems. I personally didn't see any stems or anything. Maybe it's just so small that you can't see it. And typically the Uruguayan style doesn't really have any sticks or stems. But this, again, is coming from Brazil, so it is the non-aged, so that Chimarrão also is the non-aged kind, and that's the look and feel that this yerba has. Very green, very fresh grass, earth, like fresh mowed lawn. It's very finely powdered, and that's what makes this unique compared to like an Argentine or another yerba. I also will make a note here that it has a great smell. Like, it's weird to say that this smell of like fresh cut lawn, but it smells really good. Why I'm calling it the intro to Chimarrão also is because that it has the look of Chimarrão as far as very green, as far as the powder, and the freshness being non-aged. And although it's, I guess, an Uruguayan cut, so meaning it's not as finely ground as Chimarrão. In my experience, personally, Devin here, the Chimarrão is very finely ground, and you need a special bombilla to even drink it because otherwise it'll clog the straw, from my experience. So drinking chimarrão takes a little bit of technique and learning curve, in my opinion. And another reason this is an intro to chimarrão, because this one is a little bit thicker and a little bit easier to drink if you're not used to that style. And this is a little bit thicker, so it won't clog as easily. I personally am more into the Argentina thicker cuts, and that's what I'm more used to. Didn't have, as problems, I guess, drinking this in the sense of like the chimarrão, where you have to have a special bombilla, if that makes sense. Now, the first benefit of this type of yerba is that it is smoother and less bitter because it's less aged and less complexity to it, I guess, in the sense that it's very fresh, very kind of like green tea with a very earthy green taste. And being non-smoked also, because a lot of people, it comes about, I have to do further research, but a lot of times it'll come into trending about the carcinogenics in the smoked yerbas. Now, this one is not smoked. I personally don't like smoked yerbas anyways, but that's another reason why this is cleaner, fresher, greener. And USDA organic is a good point to make there. It has a good body to it to give it some complexity, but it is definitely a smoother, lighter overall yerba. And unsmoked, it's lighter on the strength, and especially there's no wood taste. And it's more of a leafy grass taste. So I like it that it's smooth and green with a fresh taste. And although I'm not a very big into the Uruguayan cuts myself, and that's just personally just my preference, I will give it a good rating here is something that's for newer people in the sense that it's an intro to chimarrão. So it's easier to drink than that, and also without the bitter and strength of it to kind of scare away newbies. I drank it in my glass gourd when I first tried it, because that's kind of what I do to keep a standard of not letting the mate itself influence the taste. And then I, drank it various times throughout the month as well before actually doing this review. But overall, it's a 1 on strength and a 1 on bitterness. And I would give it a good solid, 7 on the yerba scale out of 10. Something that you can try for yourself on their website at Yerba Mate Lab. It's $15.99 last time I checked on the website, but it's also available on Amazon. And I want to thank Darren and his team for allowing me to try this yerba, and hope they continue to have lots of success. But I love what they're doing for the community and the slogan of where materos are born. So keep doing your thing, Yerba Mate Lab. And thanks for being the intro and listening to this podcast. I'm also going to put a video up on YouTube about what the yerba bag looks like, preparing the gourd, things like that, my little reviews on there. So check out some of the videos too if you want to see some of what I talked about. What yerba would you like me to review next? I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a message on Instagram. I'm usually hanging out there. Feel free to stop by and say hello. And until next time, this is the Yerba Power Podcast.